Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Black Dog. The Black Dog runs at night. I have to do that because I love the music. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Ryan, and I am here to introduce a very fascinating panel on Japan and Twin Peaks. I've been lucky enough to be coming to this area for over a decade. And you know, everyone always says Twin Peaks people are the nicest people in the world, but I've been working at the diner for 2 days, and you can tip a little more, is what I'm telling you. I learned the truth of Twin Peaks people. Someone is not here today, and that is Brian Cursor. I know him as Dugpa, you love him as Dugpa. He really did so much work on this project. He had a personal issue that he couldn't be here today, but he has been calling me for so long talking about this, and you're gonna learn stuff that you never knew. A lot of us have seen the Georgia commercials on, do you guys know that Twin Peaks was released on DVD? Anyone ever know that? Like once or twice or 7 times or 14 times? And this has been a bonus feature. But you think you know some things, but Stephen Miller and Brian Cursor are about to blow your mind. So grab a cup of coffee and welcome Stephen Miller.
Good morning, everyone. By a show of hands, who has been to Japan? Great. So you're familiar with Japanese culture in some way. I'm sure you had a wonderful time. I visited long ago in 2002, and I recently was there in November of 2023. And I fell in love with it. It's an amazing, amazing country with some really amazing people who are so very kind. And they have a strong love of Twin Peaks. And they have since the very beginning. And so Brian and I put together this presentation to talk a little bit about how Twin Peaks in Japan and how they have a connection here to Washington State. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the best film ever. And between that and The Straight Story, like they're vying for #1. But it was extremely popular in Japan. And we'll talk a little about that, and then we're going to talk about the Georgia Coffee commercials. And there are things today that you have never seen. There's going to be a point in the presentation that we do ask for no photos and videos, because we have these photos from someone very special to the Georgia Coffee commercials. And we're working on some things for the future, but I want to give you a sneak preview of them. And it'll also help give some context around the things you didn't know about Georgia Coffee. It's true. So, with that said, I would like to start, though, with talking about where we are here in Snoqualmie Valley. And it's important to acknowledge the Snoqualmie tribe. They have been here for a very long time, longer than we have all been here. And it's important to acknowledge the land that we are on. And if you are going out to explore the land, please just respect it. You know, stop by the Snoqualmie Falls Welcome Center. They have a really cool exhibit about Snoqualmie Falls, the importance of the falls. Anyone have the Dugpa, the swag pack and so forth? You might have seen some postcards that are in there from the real Twin Peaks. Those are photos I took for the past several years. They're randomly selected. There's 25 different designs, so if you're winning the trivia contest tonight, congratulations. You'll get all 25. So there we go. And send them. I'll put a checklist online if you're curious about what they are. And I haven't figured out how to get the rest of them released, but we'll figure that out. I would also like to acknowledge not only the Black Dog, which is such a great venue. We've been using this venue here during the Real Twin Peaks for the past several years. Damn fine coffee, right? Excellent food. I think it's a chickpea sandwich or something that Brian said he absolutely loves. And so, again, really great options. We're grateful for your time. Thank you for having us here today. Also, Jessica from the North Bend Downtown Foundation is here. Thank you, Jessica. Historic downtown Snoqualmie. Again, a wonderful, great shops in both areas, great restaurants. Jeff Warren State Farm, if you've not taken your picture down at the Welcome to Twin Peaks sign, please do so. Tag him, post it online. Stop in, because he has stickers. They're Twin Peaks stickers, really cool. North Bend Theater has some programming. We're going to go there after this. Please go, because it's going to be amazing. Scott Ryan and John Thorne are speaking with Harley Payton, which is going to be really awesome. And then Snoqualmie, again, great place to stay. That's where I'm staying, so it's a lot of fun. So let's talk about Japan and Twin Peaks. We'll start with Wow Wow. Anyone ever heard of Wow Wow? It's the Japanese broadcasting system. They were pay television. And they did a test in like November of 1990 for this like pay television. You're gonna, you have to subscribe in order to see certain programming that was found there. They followed up with about 10 to 12, 14 hours of kind of programming, seeing what this would be about. In February, they really launched the network, and in April, they had like analog broadcasts. And then it really should be called Wow Bob Wow because of Twin Peaks. May 31st, 1991, Wow Wow decides to air the Twin Peaks pilot for free. You know how like sometimes cable networks had like the free previews and you kind of like get you hooked and you then subscribe. So they showed the pilot on May 31st. The next day, June 1st, they were going to show the Dwayne Dunham-directed episode 1, but you had to pay 2,700 yen, which is about $200. Oh. And by the end of the first year, they had 870,000 subscribers. They showed the series 6 times in that first year, marathons, if you will, and they had a 7th one planned for the end of July of 1992 because of the excitement of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Most of the guests that saw Twin Peaks was because of Wow Wow, this. If it wasn't for Wow Wow, it was going to be the home video releases. And Scott jokes about the numerous home video releases. So Pioneer and Muse, which Muse was the distributor in Japan, they produced a series of 14 VHS cassettes. I actually just acquired a set recently, so I'm going to be scanning all of them and putting all the artwork online on the blog. And I also have then the Laserdisc set. There was 2 different Laserdiscs. There was like a box set, and then there were some individual Laserdisc sets, a set of 3. They had about 7,000 Laserdiscs produced. That was about $460 US, about 60,000 yen. They sold out. The complete 14 cassettes was about $440. They sold about 15,000 to somewhat of 30,000 of those sets out there. They had rental videos, but they had a waiting list in order to rent the series. It took hold in Japan unlike any other American television show. This was really the first time in Japan where like audiences really gravitated to this. And it was something about the mood, about the characters, something about being scared, which comes into play. We'll talk about that in a second. But the guests, the television viewers in Japan really, really liked Twin Peaks. Now this is 1991. So you're thinking May 31st, 1991, the season 2 finale, the 2-part movie, didn't air until June 10th of 1991. So they were just starting in a time before the internet, before anything else like that, and it really took hold in Japan. Now, when ABC broadcast it in April of 1990, shortly thereafter, people said, where is the Falls? Where is this place? I want to go see this. And what you find is that the real Twin Peaks became an instant draw. I mean, show of hands, who's first time here? Welcome. It's really great. I'm really glad you're here. It's amazing how it draws you in, this place. It's such a magical place here. There's so many cool things to see. Pat Coquell is in the middle here. That's she worked at the Marquee Cafe. She owned the Marquee Cafe at the time when filming was done. She appears in a brief deleted scene behind some extra footage. But they would run out of pies by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it was huge demand. People come here. So of course, naturally in Japan, the same kind of thing, where people wanted to know, how do I get to the real Twin Peaks? Where is this place? Where can I visit? So this guy named Naofumi Komai found this 60-page guide that a Muse, the video distributor, put out. And he said, why don't I create like a tour for people to come visit the real Twin Peaks? So he worked with the Japanese travel bureau, and they introduced 2 tours during the December 1991 broadcast on Wow Wow. And not surprisingly, both sold out instantaneously. It was a 4-day trip for 198,000 yen, which sounds like a lot, but it was about $1,800 US at the time. It was 4 days, about 50 people. And they had 2 tours. February 15th to the 19th was the first, so just about the time that we're here right now. And then February 28th to March 3rd. And then they added a 3rd tour and then the 4th, and then a 5th, and a 6th. They end up having 6 tours between that February and March time period, and about 300 people. Now they targeted it to college students or female viewers. A lot of the female guests in Japan really resonated with the show, and so you're going to see in some photos that Komai-san had provided. There are a lot of women that are on this tour here. Probably late 20s, maybe early 30s from that. But I did find some footage, not necessarily from the tour, but there was a reporter that came over from EXTV. His name is Yuji Kono, and he has about a 3-minute video, and I wanted to at least show this to you because it's about that, again, early 1992 time period. They had wrapped filming for Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me at the end of October. So, they were here in the region around that same time, a few months earlier. So you're going to see some locations that don't exist or don't exist in the same way that they do today. And you are going to see Pat Coco at the end of this. So it is in Japanese. Do not speak Japanese. But what I was able to translate, thanks Google Translate, and if you ever do go to Japan, I recommend Google Translate because you can type in something and just show people and you can navigate around very easily. But I held up the translator to kind of figure out what it was. They talk a little bit about this tour, this place is similar to Field of Dreams, where you could go and visit the baseball field where they shot, Field of Dreams. So similar kind of thing. But let's take a look at Yuji Kono here.
俺ね、去年ここ行ってたんだよ、シアトルに。
シアトルね。
ちょっと寄らなかったの？だからツインピークスのその近くにあるってこと知らなかったんだ俺。
もう典型的なアメリカのいい街ですよね。中産階級以上は住んでる。
シアトルから3、40分。
40分ぐらいですね。
40分ぐらい車で行くと。改めてね、帰ってきて序章最初のシリーズね、ほとんどこの街でロケしてるっていうのが分かりました。
あ、本当だ。なるほどね。
川のせせらぎがとってもいい感じですけれども、流れているのはスノコルミー川と言います。この川っぺりなんですけれども、なんかちょっと水たまりがあります。でこの横にもう一個水たまりがありますね。この穴が画面向かって右側の柱が埋まってた穴としまして、こちら側にもう跡はないんですが、画面向かって左側の柱の穴があったとしますといかがでしょうか。おなじみの映像とぴったりと重なります。ロネット・ポラスキー、彼女がよろよろよろと、歩っていたところですね。
でもこうやって見せられると感動しますね。なんか知らないですけどね。なんかもう知り合いがいる親戚がいる祭りみたいに見えますよねこれね。
親しみが湧きますよね。
これなんですか、タコ屋さんですか。
そうなんですよ。タコ売ってるんですよ。ここガソリンスタンドに作り変えて作っちゃった江戸のガソリンスタンド。
じゃあここでガソリン補給してくれって言ってもタコ入れられるわけだ。タコつけられて。タコつけられて。
本当にちっちゃな田舎町ですけどね、まあよく活用し尽くしたっていうか。
いやもうロケーションのあり方最高だよね。で逆に言うとさ、予算がなかったってことね。それくらい予算がなかった。
完全にロケハウスそういうのなんですかね。
もうすっごいロケハウスでしょ。
あ、これは若者が集まる
ロードハウス。撮り方がね、あとすごいうまいよね。もうここ以外撮れないっていうところばっか狙ってる。
うまいですね。
すごいうまい。
さすがに
これ
もあるんですか。
これはね、実はなんか全米からもう古くなった列車が全部ここにまあ基本的には修理するために、だから地元では列車の墓場っていうか、昼間からなんかちょっと不気味な
異様な雰囲気ですよね。
本当だ。あ、中がすごいぐちゃぐちゃ。
なんか本当ゴブがいそうですねこれね。なんか最初にあそこ見つけたんじゃないんですか。
そこから発想した
なん
とか
かね、そんな気がしますけどね。ここ行ってみたいよ。
マーティカフェってもうすごく有名になっちゃってね。今や。
これ信号？
風に揺れてる信号。
風に揺れてる信号。
なんか信号って珍しかった。そっかそっかそっか。
繁盛してんでしょ。
ツインピークスのおかげで。すごい
ですね。オリジナル T シャツとかいっぱい作ってるからね。もうすごい。
原宿のタレントショップみたいなノリですか？
このシェリーパイっていうのは
でね、
名物なんでね。
小さくてね、本当にここ取りづらいんですよ。あれ以外ね、どうしようもない。
何がうまいの一番これ。
やっぱりチリパイ美味しかったです。
それ今今野さんが言いますよ。 VTR の中で、
それではせっかくですからデビッド・リンチが大好きだったというこの、チェリーパイを僕も一口いただいてみようと思います。
オードブルみたい。
He clearly is enjoying cherry pie, right? You know? People get hooked, then they get sucked into the Twin Peaks world, and eventually they want to go there and see the place for themselves. I cannot relate at all. That's tour organizer Kazuo Kawata, and Tomoyuki Komagata, he was also working on this tour. They originally planned it as just like a one-off thing, but then clearly it expanded to the 6 different tours. One of those visitors was Tomi Tsutomoto, and she was 31. She watched every episode 5 times, so she was one of those watching the marathons again and again. She came over here with her husband, who I'm sure was very patient, Kichi. He's a 33-year-old accountant in Kobe. And she said, I can't wait to eat some cherry pie at the Double R. And the reason why is because she founded the Kyle MacLachlan fan club in Japan. And during that first tour, there were 15 members of that fan club, and you can see them because they're all wearing the FBI jackets. Very similar to what Dale Cooper wore in the series. The thing that she took away from the tour was that she was surprised at how cheerful the town was. It wasn't like the dark, treacherous place in the TV show at all. I hope you've experienced the same kind of thing here at the real Twin Peaks. Thanks to Komai-san, we have some photos. You may have seen some of these photos floating around the internet from the past 30 years or so. I give some context into them, and you might then understand where they came from, kind of the origins of this. We'll start with the Salish Lodge. At the time, it was known as the Salish Lodge. It didn't become Salish Lodge and Spa until about '96. This is the refurbished Salish Lodge that was done in 1988. In fact, this view is very similar to what you would see in the series. They shot from across the parking lot, the free parking across the way. And what you'll notice are these 2 buses, right? The Gray Line buses. This is not the first tours to the real Twin Peaks. Gray Line out of Seattle started running tours from May 1st, 91 to about October 13th of 91. I have yet to find anybody who's gone on those tours or had seen any photos, but man, if they did, and they were anywhere between September 4th and mid-October of that year, they could have seen filming that was done for Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me. I mean, somebody out there has to have these images. If you do, please reach out. I'd like to chat with you. So they arrived on the first group arrived on February 15th. They stayed in downtown Seattle. Then they came out to the Salish Lodge. And these are more views of the Salish Lodge. Of course, it looks a little different now in the beginning, or in the front of it. The porte-cochere has been extended and covered over. This is the view from the bridge across the way. They've also redone the restaurant, which again, Twin Peaks Day breakfast, damn fine coffee. That's good stuff. The guests then gathered in the ballroom of the Salish at the very basement here, and they opened the elevator doors and out stepped Cheryl Lee and Frank Silva. Now, as you can possibly imagine, they were speechless from that. This is Frank and Cheryl posing next to a fireplace there. There were a lot of reporters that came out to capture this moment. One of them, Jim Davidson from the Associated Press, captured this incredible shot of Frank Silva giving one of those primal screams. The guest in the middle there, that is Kiko Hasegawa, and then Satomi Satake, who is the one, she's wearing the Twin Peaks like phys ed sweatshirt that was an officially licensed shirt that they did at the time. There's only a handful of those things that are out there. She gave Frank a doll, and she brought a sweatshirt for Cheryl Lee. Very gift-giving culture, and so they're always presenting gifts in various ways. As you can see her reaction, she said, I was happy to meet them both, but meeting Bob was a different sort of excitement. Really? It had the element of fear to it. You think? You know. And he was the nicest guy. I never met him. I wish I could have, but John and I were talking about him yesterday, and John Thorne, who did Wrapped in Plastic for many years, the lifeline for me in the 90s, a chance to spend time with Frank, and again, just nicest guy, but boy, that look, that reaction. Now, I want you to pay attention to Satake-san, because there are additional photos of her reactions that are just priceless with this. You can see another of the guests that are wearing the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department shirts. Again, the FBI jackets, that's the Calvin Rockland fan group. And then they got a group shot with everybody. And you can see her in the middle here, and then she's like reacting, and then she's reacting, and she's reacting, because she's literally right next to Frank Silva. And I would probably be the same way if I think about it. Before Cheryl and Frank visited the Salish Lodge, they did visit some of the locations. They went out to the Weyerhaeuser sawmill office. The mill was still a little bit operational at the time. It was closing down pretty much most of there. It now today is known as Dirtfish. And then they also did an interview out at the train car. So Yuji Kono, the person who did that tour for EXTV, did about a 3-minute tour with interview with Cheryl Lee and Frank Silva out at the train car. I never got to visit the train car, and yes, I'm really sad. If I had a time machine, that may be the first place I'd go, just because I'd love to get photos. This one came from a Japanese booklet that was released during Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. They had it's a blue cover booklet. Some of you may have seen this online. But the train car does not exist anymore. The train graveyard doesn't exist anymore. You can drive on the road where it was. If you headed up to Snoqualmie Parkway, there's a neighborhood that's off to the side now where the train graveyard would have existed. Man, I'm sad. They ended up at the Marti Cafe, and they had dinner. They dined on meatloaf, baked potatoes, green beans, and they had donuts, and of course, cherry pie. You'll notice the downtown looks a little different. There was like an alpine theme at the time. This was kind of a nod to Leavenworth, Washington. They had this whole theme. The Alpine Blossom and Gift Shop was the place. Today we have like Snoqualmie Trading Company, and we have DT Vintage, we have all sorts of places that are selling some stuff. But Alpine Blossom, Joanne Richter ran that store for several years, and it was the place to get Twin Peaks merchandise. During my first visit 30 years ago this August, I remember buying a lot of merchandise from the Alpine Blossom, and the same went for the tour groups from Japan. They ended up buying a lot of things to bring home. They had t-shirts, they had videos, they had all sorts of stuff that was carried in that location. It's now a pet shop, so and they do not carry Twin Peaks stuff. I was really hopeful I could bring something home for my small Mexican chihuahua, but missed opportunity. I really want to talk to them about that. The one thing that surprised the tour groups the most was the reporters. There were so many reporters trying to capture this, because it was an exciting time to having these tour groups from Japan showing up in the real Twin Peaks. They were filming them eating, they were filming them doing stuff, and I think they felt it was a little embarrassing. It's Japanese culture, and so they were being on camera. I haven't seen some of these original interviews. I'd love to see. The King 5, I think, came out and captured some stuff. But great to see. They did visit locations then. The next day, they were out visiting the sign spots with their makeshift Welcome to Twin Peaks sign. I love the population 51,200 because, or it died, so there was not the 01 that was originally there. And you see that on a lot of the Japanese materials. They have this logo 51,200, not 2001 or 201. This is Renning Road about that same time. This is again from Komai-san's photos. It does look different today. If you do go out there, that's part of the revetment project. As you may have seen on the news nationally or worldwide, some flooding happened in Snoqualmie. The Snoqualmie River does tend to flood a lot, and if they didn't shore up Renning Road, then Renning Road would go away, and we don't want that to happen. So you can go out, and the next part is you can line up the mountain. That doesn't change, and get that shot. They did also visit the Weyerhaeuser sawmill as well, with handheld video cameras. I did see somebody driving around yesterday with one of those. Wow, that's old school, ain't a lot. Point and shoot cameras, those are back too, I guess. David Sears and I were talking about that as well. He's a photographer from many years ago. The nice part is some of those old cameras, you could put the date on the front of the pictures. That was like revolutionary at the time. So this one says 2/17/92. So we know February 17th, they were out visiting Ronnett's Bridge, the Renning Road Bridge. This is when the trestle still existed across the road. You can see that in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me when Mike is chasing the Palmers in the Chinook. You can see they pass underneath that. They did climb up onto the trestle. It courses today the Snoqualmie Valley Trail. There is no trestle tracks or anything like that there. There's a great shot of David Lynch standing on those tracks. You probably have seen that publicity shot. That would have been extended across the way. The What the Hell guy from the pilot, that was also, again, would have been across the trestle tracks as well. That's all gone. Down the street, the gazebo, they did take pictures of that as well. Smokey Joe's right behind it. The gazebo was used in a deleted scene. And I love this. This is just random, but it's the Snoqualmie Police Department. Well, I love they took a picture of this because those police cars might look familiar. They end up using similar police cars in the show. There's a great shot of a police car, kind of footage running down Rainy Lake Road, lights on. And there, that's Snoqualmie Police there. This is the second tour group, then came on February 28th. I call attention to, it's either good parenting or trauma. I don't know. But there is a baby that's over here, and you can't see the baby the corner here. I don't know if we can maybe change the screen. Vinny's going to help me out here. There it is. The baby that's clearly looking at Frank going, what the hell is going on here, Mom? You know? I'd be that way too if I was a month old. I don't like the child was in. But again, it's going to be good parenting. That's how you look at it. I try to get my son to watch it. He's watched like the first 6 episodes, but I don't know. Frank did his primal scream then for the group as well, wearing the awesome jean jacket. I mean, again, I can't even imagine sitting in a room with Frank Silva and he's doing this, but very exciting. They did go out to Kiana Lodge out on Paulsbo. The thing that they learned, the first tour group and the second tour group is, the second tour group though, they brought plastic bags. Or plastic, because they found that, like many of you have done, they want to be wrapped in plastic by Laura's Lock. So again, those tours continued into March, that in 1992. But meanwhile, February 22nd, so that's tomorrow, February 22nd, Kyle MacLachlan made his way to Japan for some press about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the last 7 days of Laura Palmer. That was the subtitle for Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. He arrived on February 22nd, greeted by, of course, the Kyle MacLachlan fan club, and he was presented flowers, and he ended up doing some press around that. The next day at Shinjuku Station was the first of several funerals for Laura Palmer. This was a promotion to drive excitement for the film, clearly capitalizing on the excitement that the viewers in Japan really liked. They were very well attended. They had several different of these stations doing these kind of mock funerals from that. Then on Twin Peaks Day, February 24th, 1992, Kyle MacLachlan did a press conference with lots of media in attendance, where they did talk about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, his work on it, which was about 5 minutes. But again, it was some work that he did, drink coffee, did some other promotions. He was on a late night show, he did some other recordings that he was there as well. About a month later, Cheryl Lee did then do some press as well in Japan, where she's pictured with the effigy that cost like $7,000 to create in her likeness. That has to be surreal. I can't imagine, from that. But what I'd love to show you is the one of the original trailers from Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me in Japan. There was 2 different cuts. I've seen a second cut, and I just recently found this cut. You'll notice in it, it's all in Japanese, so sorry, but it does highlight 2 of the stars in the film. You'll see, you'll laugh, because they're, again, not in all that long. It also calls out the actors that are in the film, directed by David Lynch. It was a big important thing, but it is so great. I love this trailer.
ラパーマー最後の7日間。
Coming soon in May. I love it. And randomly, David Bowie is somehow in the film for like 10 seconds, but he's there. I mean, clearly David Bowie was a huge draw, right? If you think about audiences in Japan would have recognized him, he was clearly a name. You know, Kyle MacLachlan was very connected as well. And let's switch back to. So, I mean, that was one of two different trailers. They did a ton of other press. They were featured, Cheryl Lee and Kyle MacLachlan featured in a number of different magazines. Then the film opened on May 16th, 1992, the same day as the Cannes Film Festival. So it opened in about 100, they had about 100 theaters that were showing it. So a US equivalent would be about a 2,000 theater release. It was a huge success. In fact, by mid-June, 450,000 tickets had been sold. Many of those tickets are this kind of centerpiece here. You might see some of those on online auction sites because they obviously sold a lot of tickets. It was a runaway hit, and it became one of the top 10 films of 1992. And that's an important note for what we're going to talk about next, because all of this excitement around Twin Peaks in Japan caught the attention of Coca-Cola. Why Coca-Cola? Georgia Coffee is a Coca-Cola brand. And so they reached out to David Lynch and thought, yes, let's do a marketing campaign to solidify our market share of the canned coffee market that's in Japan. They had about 40% of that market. They really wanted to have more. They had other competition that was coming into play. So on January 18th, 1993, at the Imperial Hotel, they made an announcement, a press conference, that they were going to have this Georgia Coffee Twin Peaks type campaign. And the first of the commercials was airing on January 20th, so like 2 days later from that. Thanks to Ben Oliver and Dugpa, Brian, they have remastered and they have upscaled some of the Georgia Coffee commercials. If you've not seen them, I'm going to show them to you in full. It's a short thing, 4 different parts to it. If you're headed to the Fan Film Festival at the North Bend Theater, they're going to show them on the big screen as well. There is one section in there of something you don't really see a lot of. There was 3 different commercial takes for the different brands of Georgia Coffee, the different types of things, and so there's one in here that you probably have never really seen before, and Jared Lyon helped with that, and it's kind of this, well, it's very David Lynch, sparkling coffee. It's really, it's pretty amazing. So let me switch over to this.
Before answering the surveyor, she sent me this postcard from the break room. When they searched her room, all they found was this picture and this dear head. It's over a coffee. No, Lucy? Incredible. You two have got friends. It's rich. Man, oh man, this Georgia is damn fine coffee. It's true. What about this dear head? Notice the symbol, Ken? I think you and I should take a drive. The game's gas farm. Somebody's car. A very rare Von Singer fighter. Singer balls? I don't get it. Come on, let's grab a bite to get a Georgia. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's called Georgia Coffee. Comes in a can. It's good and rich as any coffee I've ever had. It's true. What do you think he means? No, Ken. Gee. How about a couple of Georgia Coffee photos? Cooper? Hawk? You're gonna love Georgia Coffee. It's real rich. Tastes incredible. Damn fine coffee, right? Right. It's true. Want to connect the pins. The letter G. Good work. Last pin. Glastonbury Grove. Home of the Black Lodge. That's what I'll find, son. Watch. The Black Lodge isn't in this world. Inside is a red room. A sign. Great idea, kid.
That's like being trapped in the Black Lodge for 25 years and you have Georgia Coffee. Right? You know, it's true. I love it. Has anyone ever had Georgia Coffee? Yes, it's like the best. They sell it in a vending machine at, when I went it was like Universal Studios, Japan. My wife and I were there, and of course I had to get that. And she's like, well, you have to get that. So I was like, it's true. They had 24 cans that were done, and they had different themes of these cans with different types of coffee. So they had the characters that were in these commercials. They had catchphrases like damn fine coffee, or it's true. They had evidence or clues like the deer head and the G, and then the locations that were there as well. And thanks to Frank Turner, we can see some of those cans lined up. I don't have any of those cans, so if anyone's ever looking to sell them, find them, please reach out. I'd love to have the entire set. That'd be amazing. Brian went through and he was translating some of the cans and what they actually say. So this says, Cooper is an FBI agent who solved the Laura Palmer case in Twin Peaks. The second case that occurred was the mysterious disappearance of Japanese tourist Asami Hara. She gets a last name. And it's a second case. Why the FBI is involved with the disappearance of a Japanese tourist, we don't know. Maybe it's crossing state borders or transcontinental planes. I don't know from that. But Asami Hara was an ordinary office lady. She fell in love with Ken, got engaged, and chose Twin Peaks as her final destination for her single life. And then she suddenly disappeared. Where is Asami? Ordinary office lady. I just like, it's very descriptive. But I think Coca-Cola executives are pretty smart about this because they knew that, again, just like Hitomi Tsukamoto, who had, she was, again, an office lady, there was a female audience that certainly resonated. So this would have resonated with a particular audience out there that we're trying to appeal to. But I just love that she chose, I mean, I guess I would too. The final hurrah. And then disappear into the Black Lodge. Really great. They had a whole bunch of stuff. They had merchandise, they had mugs, they had keychains, they had apparel, and then they had some posters. And the poster marketing is just phenomenal. I love these posters. Kind of like a Blue Velvet-esque, looking through the blinds, I guess. Just great. Advertising different types of Georgia Coffee brands that have these different clues and so forth. This is one of my favorites. It's a bunch of thumbs up and thumbs down. It's translated to leave it to Georgia. It's just, I love it, These are also my favorite because they show some shots from the commercials that you don't really see with stuff that was shot at the Black Lodge or right at the entranceway there. Some of the other actors and such. I can only imagine walking in to a grocery store and seeing a giant cutout of this. John, thank you. I know there was again that was featured in one of the Wrapped in Plastics, the Georgia Coffee, the poster there. There was reports of people stealing them. I can relate, which is great. Yeah. So Brian was fortunate enough to travel to Japan and recently connected with Takanori Higuchi. And Takanori played the Detective Ken Saito. And I'll tell you, Brian said he was the nicest guy. Incredible guy. Very generous with his time. He was born in Osaka. He built a career in television, doing those kind of fantasy shows like Ultraman or Super Sentai or Kamen Rider. And in 2001, he appeared in Kamen Rider Agito as Dr. Karu Kino. He was a surgeon who becomes another Agito. And it was just announced recently that he's reprising this role 25 years later. And it was a huge thing. I suddenly saw traffic on the blog spike. I was like, what is going on? And found out that he posted that it's been under wraps, it's been negotiations, but this is a huge thing for him to come back into this role here. But he's been involved with acting for decades. In 2002, he founded the Actors Training Center. And he's been working on a short, a feature film called Haru, the Wandering Swordsman. And that's where the whole, campaign thing that we're working on with him here. He's thinking about doing some type of Kickstarter campaign to help fund with some of these things. And that's what leads to this next slide, where if I could please get your help with something. Really trying not to have these out there. It's neat. He was so generous with sharing these here as a sneak preview. The reason why we want to be able to offer these in another way, in a higher quality for fans that are interested in this, and so we're working out what that would look like. But Taka provided some images that, well, again, I get geeked out by this kind of stuff. I hope you do too. We'll start with this one. This is the Von Singer Bible. That's David Lynch. He's looking at the car. The car was owned by Monty Montgomery, and Monty was a producer for this commercial. It was Monty's car. He got it in like 1988, refurbished it. Took about 2 years or so in LA, refurbisher, and he showed it at the Pebble Beach Car Show about August 23rd, 1992. And that's an important date because of this. So it was refurbished. The Von Singer Bible is not a real car. That's a made-up name. It's Rupert von Singer and Hans Weibel. They were big in early creators of Porsche, and they did some like selling of the Porsches in Europe and such. The car for a long time thought it was an early prototype Porsche, and it turns out it's just a VW Sport Cabriolet. It has changed hands a few times. It is now repainted tan and lives in Argentina. I imagine Philip Jeffries is driving that car. Taka on the set, behind the scenes with Michael Horse and King Robertson, and here he goes, along with Asami. Asami was a model. She had never done any acting before, and she just was a model from this. We have a lead, and we're hopeful to have an interview with the actress who's still doing stuff today, coming to the blog. Brian's working on it right now. The Rog Lady, as people would call her in Japan, the Rog Lady, huge. Catherine never went to Japan. She always wanted to go, I think because it just would have been amazing, but this is her. She gave Taka a signed picture. This is one of her press photos that she would use to sign. You can see one of those also in tweets in the display case as well. It says, "Taka, the log be with you, it's true." The commercials were so well done because of the lens of Ron Garcia. So Ron, who worked in the pilot, worked in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with me, he served as cinematographer for these commercials, which is amazing. And again, to him, Taka with Ron. And it gets me to then the mysterious fifth commercial. And apparently, there was a fifth commercial. It was maybe rumored that maybe Dana Ashbrook was somehow involved with that commercial. He mentions in a 2023 interview, he's like, I don't know, and the last time I saw it, I have no idea what's going on there. I know there was a scene shot in the diner, which is a repeat of the scene in the pilot we had shot for a Japanese coffee commercial. The Germans are always on time thing. There are two Japanese actors in the same scene as well. It was really funny. I couldn't tell you though. I don't know, man. I have no idea. I can hear Dana Ashbrook saying that from that. So I have to figure they got out of the Black Lodge, right? You know, and they saved and they have their Georgia Coffee, and they must have returned, right? The story must have been they returned to the Double R for more pie, and maybe that whole scene with Shelley and Bobby were there, because obviously you mentioned film scenes for this. But it's like, does it exist? Unfortunately, we don't have any of the video footage, but we do have something really cool, which is the photo of Dana Ashbrook in his Bobby Briggs attire, right? With the two actors there. The interesting piece is the date. So if we're looking at the date here, it says down in the corner, September 1992, which means that these commercials were filmed in 1992 in September, when Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me was bombing at the US box office. It's amazing that this was still going on, and they were shooting all these things in LA. They recreated a set for the Double R Diner. I think the Von Singer Bible and the whole red, the Black Lodge entrance was at Franklin Canyon Park. It would make sense because that's where they shot the original, entrance to that. Plus, some of the landscape looks pretty familiar in Southern California. So again, this was going on. David Lynch is clearly seeing the newspaper reports that Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is not a huge hit here in the United States. Wasn't until obviously years later it becomes this really underappreciated film. a masterpiece, if you will. So they're shooting these things here, and then they had time to edit it, and then they debuted it in January. But it's exciting to know that this exists in some way out there. Maybe the footage will be found some way, shape, or form. And that takes us to Japan. So thank you very much for your time today. We have just a few minutes here, and I'd certainly open up to questions. Carl, Mayor of Twin Peaks.
One of the eternal puzzles for fans has been that the licensed merchandise you can buy in the U.S. says damn good coffee. And those of us who had stuff that's been authorized by Lynch have to use the words damn good coffee. Do we know if it's because Georgia has a trademark on the phrase damn fine coffee?
That would make a lot of sense. Spending time in merchandise development for a major hospitality and entertainment corporation that rhymes with Isney. I can imagine that, yeah, I could see where that would be the case. Trademarks are such a thing that you can't use certain language on stuff because they have a mark for it someplace else and that person owns it, so you have to like change it a little bit. Song lyrics, same kind of thing that runs into plays. Certain songs you can't use the lyrics on unless you have a license. So that would make sense, Carl. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah. Kirsten.
So after the tours were such a huge success and everything like that, how did the influence of Twin Peaks affect Japanese filmmaking and media production afterwards? Because we saw kind of a darker turn towards some of the animation stories that they were providing afterwards. How much of that do you think was inspired by Twin Peaks?
Oh, I think it's very much inspired. I think that, again, it was such a cultural phenomenon and something that, again, Japanese audiences had never seen really before on TV. Some of American audiences, they had never seen something like this on network television. To the point that, again, it's still very much alive today, Japan and Twin Peaks. I mean, I'm wearing the undercover Jun Takahashi sweater, the most expensive sweater I've ever purchased, but come on, it's Twin Peaks sweater, it's awesome. And they just released some more undercover stuff, like a puffer jacket, which would have been nice for this weekend. So I can imagine that they're very similar to how, again, Twin Peaks was such an influence for the shows that we love also today, the Losts of the World and the X-Files and Gravity Falls and all these other things. I can see where that would be the case. I have to do more research on it, but I imagine that there was a big influence in that. And not only that, but also video games. There's a whole outlet, folks that were inspired by Lynch's work to be able to go on and do video games that related to that. So yeah, I can see where it's the case. Vinny.
For folks who may not be aware, do you want to tell us a little bit about the visual soundtrack?
So the visual soundtrack, that a whole other thing. So that was released on Laserdisc, and it uses the soundtrack to Twin Peaks. They came over and filmed here. I think some of the footage has appeared, again, very similar around that kind of December maybe time period, because the Marti Cafe has Christmas decorations up, so we assume there's probably some time in that. It was designed to capitalize on the Japanese market, and it basically is a love letter to Snoqualmie Valley. And yes, I do want to recreate it shot for shot. That would be amazing. Carl and I were talking about that the other night. I think it'd be fun to kind of visit the locations, 30-some years later. But again, that, and then things like Peaks Mania, which is a CD that was like an extended play. Again, the soundtrack was a huge hit, so they were just trying to rush the market, anything that they could to capitalize on this, fever of Twin Peaks. The books were translated, the autobiography of Dale Cooper, Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, they were translated from that. But the visual soundtrack itself, there's copies of it out there, it exists online. You have a Laserdisc, don't you? Yeah, he has a Laserdisc. It's great. John?
It's interesting to see all those tour groups come to here Snoqualmie in '91. You say?
Yeah, it was early '92. Yeah.
I was here at festival. I was here in '93 and '94, and it was '94. There were Japanese tourists here for those festivals, and they were so excited. It was really interesting to see them here, and they couldn't speak English. They had one interpreter with them, and their enthusiasm was just amazing. And so I can see where
Wow Wow ended up broadcasting The Return, many years later. The voices that did the original dubbing were hired back to provide the dubbing 25 years later for the characters that they had did in the original series. But that excitement still, continues. I was asking folks up at the sale issue, do you get a lot of guests from, Japan visiting? They said, some, so it may have shifted a little bit from that. I know, I was hopeful we might have some visitors from Japan here this weekend, maybe in the future from that. But yeah, the excitement I can see we're again, and just overwhelmed and probably really excited, just like we all get, right, when we're out here visiting these locations. It's just like you're immersed in this world. We were talking about this past couple of days, just like you really do feel like you step into Twin Peaks when you're here. And it is unlike any other TV show. I mean, I guess you could go to Hawaii and visit the Lost locations and feel like you're in Lost without the plane crash. You can't really step onto the bridge of the Enterprise as much as I'd like to. You can't go to Scarab, to the beaches of Rogue One. I don't, you can't do the stuff in Star Wars, but here you really do feel, and I think not only that, the welcome to the town, right, and just the welcome feeling, like some of the original tour groups said, they just were so cheerful and everybody's so welcoming and so friendly, and how much that has really advanced from that. Again, this weekend wouldn't be here without your enthusiasm, of this, and I know the Snow Valley Regional Chamber recently put out that Twin Peaks tourism maybe generates about $12.5 million in economic impact. So when you're buying things here, and you're taking home souvenirs and you're dining in the restaurants and all the great specials are going on here and all that stuff this weekend, you're contributing to this economy. You're contributing to economic prosperity for people who live in the real Twin Peaks and those that want to live in the real Twin Peaks that love here and just want to be connected to this. So it's great. I know I'm grateful that you see so many people here on a Saturday morning to learn more about Japan and hearing that. Thank you, John. Good observations. Other questions? Yeah.
Hi. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. That tourism ad, incredible. Where would that have aired? I have a couple questions. Where would that have aired? And then also, I'm so curious about these funerals and how many of them were there? And were they just in Shinjuku, or they were mentioned other stations? Like what other stations?
So the question was, where's the tourism ads air, right? That flyer and so forth. They aired it during the Wow Wow broadcast in December of '91. And then they were also included with some releases, home video releases. Brian shared me a photo of, in one of the Laserdisc packages, there was a poster that was included. Yes, I want it, cannot find it, but it's one day, it'll turn off. They always do. And then the promotions, they were held at various train stations. And I think there was like maybe 5 or 6 different ones that were held across the way. Shinjuku being one of the first. But yeah, the whole effort, and again, there's some other footage out there of Entertainment Tonight had a report about it, and they were like carrying the body wrapped in plastic and setting it in the coffin. Wild. I mean, again, the excitement. Again, it's no different than anybody's going out to Kiana and wrapping yourself in plastic. It's the same. They want to be connected to this world. They feel drawn into this thing and want to live out this Twin Peaks fantasy. So I can see we're in the excitement. And again, I think all those promotions really led to the success. There were reports, people that went to see the film though and left it going, I don't know what was happening. And a lot of people said that same thing too, but they were drawn to, I think, that mystery and the not knowing, and there's something about that mystique of Twin Peaks Firewalk with me, and you go, what the hell is the first 30 minutes? What does that have to do with the rest of it, right? It has everything to do with the rest of it. But to me, it's I think the response, they like that sense of mystery and that wonder, and they weren't sure what to figure out. There was not a straightforward answer with some of those things, which is why we're all drawn to David Lynch's work. Yeah, Rear.
It looked like from your promotional posters that the film was not called Firewalk with Me in Japan. Is that right?
It was Twin Peaks, the last 7 days of Laura Palmer was really, and that was a subtitle. Like Germany, German release was Twin Peaks Der Film. Twin Peaks the film. There was that was it. But here it was Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me in the North American release. So yeah, one of the original, and if you look at the early scripts from Engels and Bob Engels and Lynch, it was Twin Peaks in the last 7 days of Laura Palmer. So the whole looking back at that, that's a whole other presentation about the evolution of Twin Peaks, the filming of Twin Peaks, and all that other kind of and stuff. If you think about it, it's fascinating to think, okay, so they wrapped up filming for season 2 in March of '91, and then they were working on a script pretty quickly after that, with then production beginning, pre-production stuff. By July, they were already having the script. They had a first draft around that time, and then they were coming here September 4th, and they were starting, production work, actual locations. So they had acting, hire people for actors and so forth. It's a very fast turn between March and that. So clearly, David had some ideas, on his mind, and ended up turning the script out pretty fast. And I think there was talk, Bob Engels mentions about if it would have been, successful, there could have been additional films that were done around that. Kind of like some reports, newspaper reports talking about kind of like Star Trek, how there was Star Trek the Motion Picture and Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. So I imagine the second Twin Peaks film would have been amazing, right? Compared to if you Wrath of Khan. But anyway, I like the motion picture. I'm a big fan of the motion picture. It's awesome in 70s glory. It's the jumpsuits and I digress. That's a whole other fan convention. There's actually a cruise. That's what we need to do next, a cruise. Twin Peaks cruise, right? So out of this cold weather. I want to wrap up here with a thank you. It's not a thank you from me. It is a thank you from 2 people you might recognize. And then I would like to, if we could, I think this would be something fun. Taka, who obviously can't be here because he's in Japan, but I'd love to get a video of everybody yelling "It's true," right? That'd be like the greatest. I think it'd be very funny from that, because he's been so kind to us and being able to share these information, images with y'all, and we're glad Brian made this connection, and we're able to share these kind of things with you. But I'm going to leave you with this kind of final thank you from this.
Do you have any messages for Japanese Twin Peaksians?
Thank you for your support and your appreciation.
Great.
It goes back to that fear. They love the fear. They love that kind of Bob and what Bob represented. So, thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Black Dog. Appreciate it. Very back. Yes.
Thank you so much. This was really interesting and fun. Is it okay if I make a Twin Peaks related announcement?
Sure, go for it.
So Emerald City Comic Con is going to be at the Seattle Convention Center 2 weekends from now, and Kyle LeBlanc is going to be there. So if you want to get his autograph or meet him or take a picture with him, there's your chance.
Kyle was here 2 years ago, and he is literally the nicest guy. Why he's known as the internet's dad is because of that very thing. He is super awesome. That's right. It's coming up in March, beginning of March there. So, all right, I'm gonna grab my camera here real quick, and we're gonna do, or Vinny can. Hi Taka, this is Steven. I'm coming to you from the real Twin Peaks here in Snoqualmie Valley, Washington. And we just finished a presentation thanks to you and sharing some information with Brian. We're so happy. But I do have a couple of friends here. Well, they'd like to say something real quick. Everyone, if you can. It's true! Damn fine.